No mai, haere mai. Welcome to 3 News. Police Commissioner Richard Chambers today accused his own organisation of a cover-up. It follows the release of a damning IPCA report yesterday that detailed how a young woman made repeated complaints about the conduct of former Deputy Police Commissioner Jevon McSkimming, and instead of being investigated, they were labelled as false and used to prosecute her. When McSkimming was finally investigated, former Police Commissioner Andrew Costa is accused of inappropriately trying to influence it and of also misleading the Public Service Commission. Asked today if there had been a cover-up, Chambers said, "The way I read it, that's exactly what happened." On Costa's behaviour, he said it's an absolute disgrace. It's lacking in leadership, it's lacking integrity. Costa has been put on leave from his role as the CEO of the Social Investment Agency, and the government says it will install an Inspector General of Police to be the strongest possible watchdog. Adam Hollingworth begins our coverage.
At 44, Andrew Costa was the youngest person to become police commissioner, but a career of promise became forever tarnished.
It's an absolute disgrace. It's a failure of leadership. There are obvious integrity issues. It's a huge disappointment.
The bombshell IPCA report highlights the key role Costa played in trying to silence a woman who made the allegations against his deputy, Jevon McSkimming, a process which also led to a failed attempt to prosecute her.
I want to apologise to the woman at the centre of this for the repeated early failures in following the proper processes investigating this matter by those at such a senior level of police. You had asked for help, you were badly let down. That was unacceptable.
No one was answering at Andrew Costa's home today after the report that painted him as blindly loyal to one of his own, dismissing the woman's repeated claims over 7 years.
It was not the processes that were at fault here. It was people at a very senior level deciding to ignore and put aside those processes out of self-interest.
Costa failed to disclose the woman's allegations to the Public Service Commission when McSkimming was going through the appointment process for his role as deputy.
A mentality of we're all in this together is from an organisational point of view, and we want to protect ourselves. And police do see false complaints, and so they know what they look like. So it's quite easy for a senior officer to say this is a false complaint, and for the other people to go, oh, okay, that makes sense, and then just ignore it.
An investigation into the woman's claims was launched in the middle of last year, but only after police had charged her with causing harm through the deluge of emails she sent to McSkimming's work email.
Her response is what I would have considered to be quite normal, given the way that she had been treated. And whilst it may not be considered normal for someone who is making a complaint of sexual violence, it is normal for someone who has been ignored while making a complaint about sexual violence or making any kind of complaint.
Costa wrote to the IPCA to claim McSkimming was the victim and its inquiries would harm his chances of taking over from him as commissioner. He later called a meeting of key players to bring the investigation to a rapid and premature conclusion.
The fact that this was at a high level was one of the reasons why it was able to happen, because you would normally go up the chain and get someone further up the chain and they would be the person that would solve the problem for you. But in this instance, the people up the chain are the problem.
Andrew Costa was the surprise pick of Ardern's Labour government to lead the police in 2020.
I know he'll lead a team of 13,000 people across the country with inclusion, positivity.
But a softly approach reinforced complaints from the right that he was too woke to be the top cop, and the then new minister, Mark Mitchell, put him on notice by effectively performance managing him.
I have enormous respect for him, but I just had to be confident that he was actually going to lead our police service and implement what we feel is very important in terms of turning the tide.
Costa quit his job a couple of months early in September last year to become the chief executive of Nicola Willis's Social Investment Agency, a job from which he's suspended while an employment process takes place through the Public Service Commission. Under that process, the worst punishment for acting police officers is dismissal.
However, a lot of them have now moved on from police. And so only public outcry is going to see them removed of those comfortable jobs that they moved on to when they moved on from the head of police.
Judging by the response today, the public is far from satisfied with the actions of those who implemented the policies that were meant to keep us safe.
And I interviewed Police Commissioner Richard Chambers a short time ago.
I'm certainly getting a better feeling about how this has impacted on my staff. I've just been out at the police college talking to some frontline staff, and to be frank, Sam, they're pretty angry with the situation, having been let down by some former senior leaders of New Zealand Police.
This report, all 135 pages of it, is shocking, detailing police inaction over the most serious of allegations of rape, threats to use intimate visual recordings, the misuse of a police credit card and property. Would you characterise it as corruption, a cover-up?
Oh, look, I mean, I think, Sam, the report speaks for itself. It's a very thorough report. It's very convincing. It's
what would you call
disgrace.
it, Commissioner?
Well, I mean, look, people will interpret it in their own way. It's a bit of a stretch to talk about corruption, but that's certainly the way that I've heard some people talk about it. That's their interpretation, and they're entitled to their opinion.
And again, I ask, what's your interpretation? Would you call it a cover-up?
Oh, yes. I think it's pretty clear in the report that we have a bunch of senior officers, with a common interest in each other, I suppose, and self-promotion, I guess, of their roles, their responsibilities, and they've done a disservice to the New Zealand Police, but go so far as to say definitely to our country as well, because this is not the behaviour we expect of our senior leaders of police.
When an investigation was finally properly made into the allegations against McSkimming by Ms Z, that investigation found that there was insufficient evidence, so no prosecution was commenced. So does that mean that it boiled down to his word against hers?
No, look, what we put in place in November of last year, which were the right systems and processes and structure to ensure that a thorough investigation occurred, that should have happened right back at the very beginning when Mrs Z first reached out to police. And that's the issue here, is that senior officers got involved. It's not their job to get involved in the work of our expert investigators across the country, but they did. So, and the groupthink that was going on got in the way of the concerns that the woman was raising, and that's where it's totally unacceptable. So eventually, once the investigation took its course, and the facts became better understood, sure, the decision was made that there will be no prosecution, but actually she wasn't provided with the service she deserved right at the very beginning.
Yeah, and he has now, as we all know, pleaded guilty to having nearly 3,000 objectionable images, the most serious child sexual exploitation, bestiality material. Can the word of someone of that moral character be trusted at all?
Well, my view is it's an absolute disgrace, obviously, and that's the feeling of my staff. That's the feeling of, I know, many New Zealanders. It's appalling to think that a person in the police at such a senior level was behaving in that way. He's been held accountable for that, and that's what we all expect. But it's disgraceful behaviour by any member of police.
Given that, should Ms Z's allegations be revisited? Has she received justice?
Oh, no, the matters that were presented to us by Ms Z have been thoroughly investigated, and we have had independent oversight of that investigation with the IPCA. We've also had an independent King's Counsel provide an opinion on that. We've had a lot of support. We've put very robust processes in place to ensure that investigation was able to be independently and fairly considered. The decision was not to prosecute. The fact that Mr McSkimming finds himself in court and has now pleaded guilty to possession of objectionable material is a different situation, but certainly does demonstrate his character.
Commissioner, how can you reassure the public at this juncture that this will not happen again, or that any similar cases haven't already happened?
Well, look, we all want to ensure this never happens again, and that is why I've moved very quickly to put things in place to ensure that this never happens again. I'm really looking forward to having a new leadership team supporting me and helping steer New Zealand Police. You know, my job and our job as senior leaders is to provide support to the front line, and it's also to make sure that New Zealanders get the police service that they deserve, and that has not happened in this case. We've got some work to do. I'll own that and we'll move forward, but you know, it doesn't take away the anger that I've seen in the last 24 hours by my frontline staff and staff across the organisation.
Police Commissioner Richard Chambers there. Thanks for your time today. Tēnā koe.